the sounds of Django Reinhardt, my favorite guitarist. Gypsy had burned his hand or paralyzed it in some way. He only used 2 fingers. Produced a sound that nobody else compares with. Played with a man named Stéphane Grappelli, who's a violinist. The Hot Club of France. Fabulous music, just my favorite stuff. I worked to it. Turn it up to 180 decibels and just sit down here at this typewriter and start to boogie. These are, by the way, 2 of my most recent books, casually left out here so that those of you who see them will go to Subterranean Press on the website and order them. They're the hardcovers of 2 of my earliest books, one of which is one of my very, very best, Gentleman Junkie. I've been asked to talk about jazz. Well, I was a jazz critic and columnist for both Downbeat and Metronome, the 2 big jazz magazines, big regular monthly magazines of the jazz world for 20 years. I worked with people like Nat Hentoff and Ira Gettler, and I worked with everybody and was always at recording sessions at Blue Note and Atlantic, and that's where I got to know Theo Bickel and Lambert, Hendrickson, Ross. Tell you a story about Lambert, Hendrickson, Ross. For those of you who don't know Lambert, Hendrickson, Ross, go look them up. That's why we're doing this on YouTube, so that you can go to where you have to look them up. Lambert, Hendrickson, Ross were a singing trio, and they were before the Swingle Singers and before all of the other a cappella groups that took actual jazz tracks as recorded by King Pleasure and Count Basie and Joe Williams, and they had no words to them, and they created words. And one of them was black and 2 of them were white. Davy Lambert was the head of the operation, was a white dude. John Hendricks was the great, great scat singer, who still is alive. Davy's dead. Walked in front of a bus in Chicago. I don't think he did it on purpose. And Annie Ross, who many of you may know because she was in one of the Superman movies. But Annie Ross had a voice that was just incredible. And the 3 of them in unison were like archangels singing. And they would take the Basie swing section, for instance, and get them behind them doing the charts while they would scat the songs which they made up to. They had a trio which was headed by a wonderful pianist called Pony Poindexter. And Pony, and they do a song, one of the songs is Ride, Little Pony Ride. And I made their acquaintance in Chicago. When I got out of the Army, I was working in Rogue Magazine. I was the editor of Rogue Magazine out in Evanston. And I got to know everybody on the South Side in all the jazz clubs. I mean, that was the golden age. Eric Dolphy was just beginning to play, and I'll forget all the other names, but everybody who was anybody. And I met great musicians, everybody from Jack Teagarden to Louis Armstrong, and hung with them all, and always felt awkward because I was always a little white guy in among all of these heavy-duty black dudes. And it wasn't just that they were black dudes, it was that they were heavy-duty black dudes. Because there's a lot of black dudes you can hang with, and it's like hanging with nobody. But these people had chops that didn't quit. They went back to the Paleozoic, for Christ's sake. And one night, one afternoon, I got invited to a party at Pony Poindexter's. He was living over back of the yards in the South Side, deep South Side. And those days I was driving an Austin Healey. I had been racing at Watkins Glen, and I had 2 of them. I had a gorgeous gunmetal blue Austin Healey with a louvered bonnet for road. But it was laid up in the shop, as most cars usually are. So I had to take the bus or buses, various buses, all the way from Evanston, all the way across Chicago, through downtown, through the Loop, on the L, all the way out to the south side, and then back onto another bus into the largest black ghetto north of the Mason-Dixon line, where some of the most violent race riots of the 20th century occurred, one of which I covered with James Baldwin. That's a story I'll tell you another time. But I remember riding on the bus and looking out the window because there's nothing else to do. And I'm sitting there looking out the window at the markets as they go by. And here's how poor people were. There were I guess done with markers, hand-lettered signs on the windows for the markets, the meat markets and various and it said, bucket of hog maws, $1. If you don't know what a hog maw is the the mouth of the hog. Pig's feet, $1 a bucket. Chitlins, which are of course chitterlings to us white folks, but chitlins, which is the worst thing in the world, and chitlins you eat when you can't get steak. Nobody eats chitlins voluntarily. I mean, it may be soul food to a lot of people, and they may have romanticized it, but chitlins, I'd rather have a marlin spike driven through the left side of my head than have to eat chitlins. And there was a big sign, chitlins, $1. Much as you can carry in a pail, a bucket. You would bring a lunch bucket and fill it up with chitlins, which is all the crap that was left over from the pigs after they slaughtered them. Well, I got out, can't remember where it was, way deep, deep, deep in the south side, and walked down the street and went up the stairs to Pony's apartment. And I could smell chitlins cooking or frying or deep fatting or whatever the hell they did with them, purifying them somehow. And I tell you, I had to stop on the staircase because my gorge became buoyant. And it's a memory, a sensory memory that I can recall as clearly as if it was yesterday. And I got up there and we had the big party. And it was Pony and a whole bunch of Cedar Walton was there. And there was a guy who was a sax player, Officer Lem Winchester. He was a cop who oddly enough died in a bar where he was drinking one night playing Russian roulette with a bunch of other people. And they were just dicking around, and he lost. And Lem Winchester was there, and Eric Dolphy was there, and all these young guys just coming up. And they were all worshiping at the throne of Lambert, Hendrickson, Ross. And Annie was the sweetest woman in the world. She cooked like a son of a bitch. And Davy and John were there, and we all sat around just shucking and jiving for about 5 hours. Those days, that's what you did, and then everybody jammed. And I sat through one of the best jam sessions I've ever been in. And now when I look at old Blue Note records, and I've got, I don't know, 10,000 jazz albums, and there isn't a year goes by that some incredibly wealthy Japanese collector of vinyl doesn't knock on my door unannounced and come in and say, you know, Ellison-san, I know of your collection, I'd like to buy it. And they'll show me cash. I mean, he'll just fan out a wad of cash. And I've never sold them. I've got them still. I've got them all. I've got the thousands downstairs, standing up, tightly packed. And I've reviewed most of them. I've reviewed thousands of jazz albums. And I love jazz. And when I start to work on this typewriter, I turn on this Harman Kardon preamp behind me, and if the camera will pan that way, all the way across the atrium, you will see those two big black things hanging up there that look like the back seat of a 1937 Ford. Come on back. Whenever you feel like it. Those are quad electrostatic screens. They are not cone speakers. They are 3 mil thick mylar foam, electrostatically charged. They pick up each sound and project it so clearly that you can tell how much rosin the violinist has on his bows. And when I get I live on the top of the mountain here, and over here is the valley. When down there, some quadling from the music industry or the film industry, late a Friday or a Saturday night, cranks up this god-awful crap that they play these days, I put on the Chicago Symphony with Frederick Fennell conducting the 1812 Overture of Tchaikovsky, which has the cannons, the actual cannons in it, and I crank it up to, I don't know, about 4. 4 on here makes this whole room shake as if it were a temblor. And I open the door to the valley, and it's like an echo chamber. I mean, it's just, I'm in the ravine here, and it goes straight down at incredible power, and people are screaming, and dogs are hibernating with cats, and babies' heads are exploding, and ears are shedding blood. And after a while, I can turn off my music, and it's dead quiet down below. Been doing that for about 30 years. I love jazz, and I've known the great and the near great. I knew Benny Goodman, and I've got everything all the way back to Lightning Hopkins and Bessie Smith and early 1900s, all the way up through the Golden Age, which was through the 70s. I was one of the first people to hear Chet Baker play. I was there at Blue Note Records the night that Chet Baker broke out of Lexington Narcotics Farm, where he was supposed to be in rehab, and showed up with his teeth in very bad shape, never took care of his teeth or his gums. And they pulled together a jam session with some of the best sidemen in the Philly Joe Jones, and may have been Cedar Walton, and may have been Bill Evans. And they cut a 10, 12 cut set, and I was there that night. I've been into jazz all my life. I love jazz, love classical music. Haven't got much of an affection for country music. I don't hate it, but it ain't my thing. And opera drives me out of my mind. When they talk about the fat lady singing, if you listen closely in the background, you'll hear the scrawny little Jewish guy screaming. Well, that's all I have to say about jazz. If anybody wants to ask me a question, I worked with Charlie Mingus. I worked with him at the Showplace in Greenwich Village in 1960, 61. And Ornette Coleman and Thelonious Monk. And I went in between there when they were taking a break, when they were taking 5. I'd get up and do comedy. I did stand-up. And I got to tell you this story. There was a night when Mingus was playing. It was a small stage. Mingus was off here on the left with the bass. Big stand-up bass. Over on the other side was Eric Dolphy playing a Pakistani pocket trumpet. Bill Evans was on the piano. Bill Evans accompanied me when I sang. He was my sideman. One of the great things in my life. And there was somebody, I can't remember who was on drums at the time. Somebody was on drums. And in the middle of a number, something happened, and Dolphy blew a really bad note. Bad note. And it was a small audience. But Mingus, slowly and carefully, who was a big man, and even at rest he was pretty ominous and foreboding. Mingus set the bass aside against the back curtain, got up off his high stool, walked across this short stage, but as far as I am for the camera, to Dolphy, and hit him in the forehead. And hit him so fucking hard, Dolphy went right down. Bam! Just bam! Hit the deck. Out cold. Mingus turned, everybody was stunned. The group stumbled a little bit and on a chord. Then went back to doing what they were doing. the drummer paradiddling like mad so that he wouldn't get hit. Mingus went back to his bass and picked up and did some great riffs. Dolphy came to and sat up, and already a gigantic lump was forming on his forehead, which he had till the day he died. And he got up and groggily stood up and leaned against the curtain. There was a flat behind it. And after a little while, he picked up this... No, it was Don Cherry on the Pakistani pocket trumpet. Dolphy was playing sax. That's what it was. Don Cherry was the Pakistani pocket trumpet. Dolphy gets the sax and tweets and hoodles and boop, 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 until he finally got his chops back. And then after about 5-10 minutes, because Mingus really hit him hard, he was okay, he was playing again. Set was over, they took 5, I went on. Audience suffered through me. Small audience, little club, upstairs on 14th Street, I think it was. Amid all the other jazz clubs down there in that golden era. And when I got done, I went down, I sat in the front row, because that was my gig there, was to listen to the music. I got to listen for nothing. And they went back up and they started playing again. And in the middle of the first number, Dolphy blew a riff that was so muscular and so pungent and so cool that Mingus put aside his bass and got out of his chair and came across to Dolphy. Dolphy cringed like in the Big Knife, Rod Steiger, when Jack Palance is about to belt him, and he covered up like this, and Mingus pushed his hands down and kissed him full on the mouth, went back, picked up his bass and went back to playing. It was one of the most engaging nights of my life. I am filled to the brim with great stories like that are all lost to the dusts and mists of time. Now, if you don't know any of these people that I'm mentioning to you, all available to you, you have access to all the music of the world. And I hope those of you who are intrigued by what I say will go on to find these people who really matter. I'm going to turn up the music now.